Scott Baker, welcome.
Thank you, Emma. Lovely to be here.
Just admiring the background for those watching on the video with the awesome map that you've got behind you. Very, very on brand.
Yes, very good. Very handy in our office here in Geelong. And yeah, it's been more than just an artistic installation and been quite practical to tell people how Geelong works, what suburbs are what, and how it all comes together. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. When you first started thinking about your career and when you sort of first started thinking about what you thought you might want to do you remember kind of what your first thoughts were and how that kind of came about?
I know when I left school, I didn't really have a set thing I wanted to do. It wasn't like, I want to be a lawyer or a mechanic or, whatever. And I was just working in retail at the time through schooling years. And I just wanted to work full time. I think my dad wanted me to do a business degree just because it's a good broad degree. But I was like, no, I love working. I love working with people in retail. So I started working in retail full time. And yeah, things kind of progressed from there. I was a store manager. I got my first store management job when I was 18, and then got into visual merchandising. And yeah, things progressed to like a regional merchandising role, to a state role, to a national role. Um, and yeah, it's funny how things evolve. I was living in Sydney at the time for a big part of my life. I grew up in Sydney, and then an opportunity came up in my retail career to relocate down to Melbourne. And my old boss had brought me down to Melbourne, and then after a few months, he left and went across to Cotton On Group, which is down here, based in Geelong. And after about 3 months, he brought me across to Cotton On to head up marketing and visual merchandising for the factory brand. And that was, I think, in 2008. Things kind of progressed from there.
What do you sort of look fondly back on in terms of your retail career? Like, what were the things that you really enjoyed about it, and what were I'm sure a myriad of, but the ones that really stand out, the transferable skills that it gave you kind of going forward, do you think?
Yeah, the thing was the people. I loved working with people, helping people, solving people's problems. Like I loved the people component of it. Even from my first job, 15, working on the shop floor, I love that customer service piece. As my career progressed in retail, my last 10.5 years of that at Cotton On head office was an incredible life experience with business development, personal development, leadership, because they really just threw you into the deep. There was no like, here's the playbook and this is what you need to do, and just follow it and off you go. Like we kind of had to figure it out as we went, and my 10 years there was taking the factory brand from 15 stores in Australia to over 200 stores in 5 countries. And
Wow,
we set up
that's
the
huge.
business. Yeah, it was massive, and we set the business up in New Zealand, South Africa, Singapore, Malaysia as well. And I helped recruit and mentor all the in-country merchandising teams, and set up the new stores in those countries. So it was an amazing experience around having to deal with different cultures and how different people work and operate and how they like to be managed, and all of these types of things you don't really think of became challenges, but incredible learning experiences. And I think with retail, another thing I loved was the fast paced nurture.
Mm,
There was a term we used to use called speed over perfection. Like don't spend months trying to get something 100% perfect, because by the time it's perfect, like everything's moved on. It's like
yeah.
if 70% means it can get done now, do it, and then let's move on. Let's keep learning. Let's keep learning. So, yeah, it was an incredible experience.
Do you remember whether it was, I guess, kind of one incident or one particular thought, or was it kind of a slow, I guess, awakening over time of that sense of, I'm not sure this is what I want to continue doing in the long term? What was that? Talk me through that thought process and kind of how that came about for you.
Yeah, it was like I'm someone who I've always thrived when I'm under pressure. There's some intensity there. I've got a lot going on, and retail started to get just a bit same. I wasn't inspired anymore. I wasn't challenged. And we had an amazing experience, but I just had this urge of like, what's next?
Hmm.
And I went through a process, and I think my wife told me to do this, of like getting out of my head onto paper. Everything in life, I've got skills in, I'm passionate about, and I love doing. And work stuff, out of work stuff, like didn't matter. It could be anything. And it's actually very hard but very powerful getting things out of your head onto paper. And I think I've written down like 50 different things. And it bubbled up to 4 headlines, which was number one, building relationships with people. Number two, property and real estate. Number three, finance and number crunching. And number four, problem solving. And I was like, right, I think these are the things I'm good at. I love doing. I'm passionate about. Like, is there a job that's those 4 things?
Hmm.
And I spent a month on Seek looking at all the job ads and all the job descriptions, everything kind of in banking and finance, and then everything property and real estate. And I looked at real estate agent, financial planner, investment banker, and unwritten mortgage broker. I was like, oh my God, it sounds like those 4 things. I was like, I don't want to be a broker. Like, that sounds ridiculous. Like, no, I'm like, well, hang on. I think it's those things. So I spoke to our own broker we had for years. I told him the story. And he's like, look, 80% of it's the people stuff. The rest you just learn as you go. I was like, okay. And I started to research the industry. And look, when you're a broker, you have to join what's called an aggregator. And they give you all the back end support with compliance, all the software to access the lenders, marketing, and all that stuff. So I started to meet different aggregators just to understand the industry. And I went in, I was like, hey, I'm currently working in retail, I'm looking at a career change. How does this industry work? Like, do I work for someone? Do I start my own business? How does your model work? Are you a franchise? All this type of stuff. And then after I reckon a couple of months, it was like, I need to do this. And I, 2 young kids at the time, my boys were 3 and 1. I have an incredibly supportive wife. And yeah, I resigned. I put my boss at Cotton On and he just got on a plane to Brisbane, so I couldn't do it face to face. But I was like, I need to resign and go and start my own business and become a mortgage broker. And he's like, what? Almost fell off his chair. And he's like, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I've got to go now. Like, my brain is over here already. Like, I can't do my 4 weeks notice just because of the HR policy. I've got to go. Like, I'd be doing the wrong thing by the company just to hang around. And, I still love the place. I had a great experience there. Still have great relationships with a lot of people who work there. So I left and I went back. And my wife, she worked there at times, still does today, and cleaned out my desk the next day.
Wow.
I then had to study and get qualified, and then off I went and started started my business from the spare room at home as a mortgage broker.
Great piece of advice from your wife there about kind of getting it out of your head and onto paper. And I think one of the things that's often really hard with that process is, and you did it really well in your example of taking away the context and not getting hung up on what's the job title, what's the industry, what would I be calling myself, and actually just trying to take it back to what do I enjoy doing? What am I passionate about? What do I want my day to look like? And then kind of once you've got those things, almost building that back up into, okay, and what jobs would those activities and those things be? It's that lack of
Yeah,
context that actually in a weird ways the thing that actually gives you more clarity, I think.
it is, and just like breaking it down. Like when I was like,
Hmm.
okay, mortgage broking, like I didn't research the industry, but I also researched like, okay, well, like, can I make money from this? Like, how do brokers make money? You can just Google it, like how much commissions, brokers get
Hmm.
paid. So I kind of broke it down like, okay, well, how many loans do I need to settle? How many clients am I going to need to meet? And kind of like, how long is it going to take for me to replace my income? So I spent a lot of time in spreadsheets just trying to work out, like, can this be
Hmm.
financially, something that can work out? But I'm someone who looks at worst case scenario as well. So
Yeah.
I'm also like, look, if this doesn't work out and I'm really bad at being a broker, I can go back and get a nice job in retail. Like, no one's going to die. No one's going to be on the streets. Like, got
Yeah.
to put it in context. The worst case
Yeah.
scenario is still okay. everyone's happy, healthy, and I just would have learned so much more, and I would have gone back and get a job in retail.
Yeah, it's so interesting that the worst case scenario, and it's I use it all the time. It's I think almost quite counterintuitive, but there's something actually quite freeing in going through that process of what's the worst case scenario because to your point before, once you get that out of your head and onto paper, you start to realize that actually the worst case scenario isn't the end of the world. If X, Y, and Z happens, okay, I could deal with that. I could do this. I could do that. I could find a solution. I could find a way through. And suddenly, this, really scary worst case scenario, you realize actually wouldn't be the end of the world at all. And through that process, I think actually it's quite bizarrely quite freeing to go, yeah, I'd be okay. If literally the worst thing happened, I would be okay. So what's stopping me? What am I waiting for?
Totally. And I've had the conversation with so many people who are, at a, oh, I'm not loving my job. Like there's always a reason to not do something, and I think
Absolutely.
it's if you really want to make change in your life and your career, and yeah, like break it down. Like, I'm like, go to your happy place. Was there a favorite cafe with a view? Like, where's it hiking? Like, where's your place where you can go and sit and have headspace? And yeah, brain dump onto paper and look
Mm.
at words and cross things out and circle things. And like, that gives amazing clarity on, helping someone move forward on, yeah, taking a step on a new career or something like that.
Yeah, you mentioned that moment of calling your boss as they were getting on the plane to Brisbane. How did that feel? Like, were you nervous? Were you scared? Were you excited? Like, what were the
It,
what were the emotions at
I,
that time?
I still remember vividly, Emma. I was at home, but then when I ended the beach, my wife was in the turn. I think the kids were at daycare or something. And I felt a little bit sick, like, when you're going to have a tough conversation and you've got that
Mm,
sickness in your stomach. But I think where it really hit me was when I hung up the phone, I burst into tears. And I don't think my wife had ever seen me cry before. I think we've been together 8 or 9 years at that time. Like, I'm not much bothers me. I'm kind of a water off the duck's back kind of guy. I just get on with things. And yeah, I don't think I've ever cried. And I burst into tears. And she was like, oh my God, are you okay? And it's funny, it was this, and not that I was stuck there at all. I didn't hate my job
mm,
but I just had this overwhelming sense of emotion of weight off my shoulders of like, wow, I've just resigned from my job and my 20-year career in retail. Like, wow. Yeah, it was so emotional. But then, half a day later, it was like, oh my God, like I'm doing this now.
mm.
So then part of me is like, all right, well, let's get going. I need to sign up to the course. I need to get qualified. I need to do all these things. But it was an amazing emotional feeling of just like letting out, going, wow, like I've taken this step and I'm so excited and nervous and pumped all at the same time.
All of the emotions, all in one go.
Yeah.
Because even as you say it like that, I've resigned from my 20-year career. Like, it's big. Like, it's not a small thing, and obviously something that you'd spent a lot of time working up to and thinking through and going through all of those kind of thought processes. So it's kind of interesting to hear that whilst very emotional, it was almost relief on the other side of that okay, like this is the line in the sand. Now now we're moving forward in a slightly different direction.
Yeah, and it was relief in a way that you didn't even realise. Like I said,
Mm,
I love the company, love my job, love the people. So it wasn't like, oh, I hate this, I want to get out, and then I get out, oh, I'm finally out. It was just like this, like, yeah, an internal sense of relief and power of, wow, we're on the next stage. We're opening a new chapter in my book
mm.
of my career, and let's see where it goes.
It's an interesting and a really good actually turn of phrase that to think of it as a chapter because I think it's very easy to. see people do it all the time. If you're on that path, you just stay on that path. This is what I do. And you just keep kind of pushing forward. But there's nothing to say that you can't go off in another direction, start a new track, write an entirely new book. Like, why, why sometimes we just, I think, can be our own worst enemies, that we can get ourselves kind of trapped in this thinking sometimes that, well, this is the way it has to be, and kind of one foot in front of the other. And it can feel scary to go off and do something else. But as your experience showed you, kind of liberating at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're in a world these days where like work doesn't have to be this thing. Like there are so many new industries and businesses out there with technology and what the internet's done in the last, 10, 20 years. Like it's like people talk about work-life balance. It's like, oh, work's this bad thing you've got to do, and gee, you need to break from it so you can go on a
Yeah.
holiday. Like
Yeah.
I just think that's an old-fashioned mindset. Like work can be rewarding and fulfilling and give you a feeling of purpose. But it doesn't have to be this thing that we have to do because we have to earn money. And it's, oh, I don't, like there are so many things out there now that people can monetize. And I think with some planning and research and testing and trialing and lots of different things, like it can be something that you get purpose from and get paid from. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think there is a real shift there, and I think certainly the internet and kind of the digital age has been a huge kind of catalyst for that. And I don't know if you've come across or familiar with Daniel Priestley. Have you read any of or
I
seen any of
love
his
Daniel
stuff?
Priestley. Yeah.
Yeah, he's great, and he talks a lot about how the digital age has kind of really changed that. And yeah, I really enjoy listening to his stuff, and a good old Aussie boy as well.
I know when I first heard him, I actually thought he was Aussie. Like, but then I was like, oh no, he's from the UK. I think I saw him in lots of UK things. I'm like, geez,
Yeah,
accent's a bit crossover. And then I've recently learned that he grew up in Australia, was born in Australia. Or something.
yeah.
So I'm like, okay, there
I
was some
think
Australian connection.
Yeah, I think I was listening to him on something the other day, and I think he moved to the UK when he was like 19 or 20, and he's kind of
Ah,
been there ever since. But yeah, if people haven't heard him speak, highly recommend. He's been on the Diary of a CEO a couple of times, and he himself has a very interesting story, but also what he talks about and his business is also very interesting. So yeah, just as an aside,
yeah, totally. Must
if
look at
yeah, good.
that.
You mentioned purpose there, and it's something that I wanted to talk to you about as well. And I, cards on the table, in all honesty, have a slightly love-hate relationship with the word purpose, because I do feel like it has become a bit of a buzzword. But
Yes.
what does it mean to you, and how did you use that to help you kind of I guess refine what you wanted to do, and how you wanted to spend your time?
Yeah, I think as I started, yeah, the career as a mortgage broker, started to work with people and again, my background in customer service and looking after people and do what you say you're going to do. And my love of money and finance and, it's just, I mean, deep down, I'm passionate about education and educating people on all things money, budgeting, compound interest, so people can create a self-sufficient life for themselves. I like one thing that yeah, gets me going is around like helping people know that they can create a life for themselves and not have to get to 60 or 70 and rely on government welfare. Like the biggest cost to government from all that taxes is welfare.
Mm,
And it's like if people had education through schooling around money, budgeting, compound interest, and
yeah.
getting disciplines and behaviours in place, like the reliance on the government on your retirement would significantly reduce. And that
Mm.
could reduce our taxes or they could spend their money on other stuff to make this country even greater. Um, but yeah, I think for me, the purpose comes around making an impact on people's lives. And when I meet with clients, like for them to leave a meeting feeling empowered and energy and like wow, I didn't think this was for me. I thought only rich people could own investment properties, or I didn't know that was possible. Like that
Mm.
is the thing that for me is purpose. That I get up every day and I'm like, I'm going to make a difference in people's lives today. I'm going to educate them. They're going to leave a conversation with me feeling inspired, feeling like they've left with more information than that they came with, and they feel like they're taking control of their life. Yeah, for me, that's the biggest thing about purpose is that the impact on other people and knowing that
Mm.
I'm doing something that's making a difference. Mm.
Yeah. To your point there about teaching, essentially teaching finance in school, not necessarily from a, obviously you can go and study economics, but that more sort of day to day way that you would use finance knowledge, whether it's, how to manage your household budget or how do you get yourself into your own home
Yeah,
or
yeah,
all of that kind of thing. I do think stuff like that should be taught in schools. Like to me, there's should be part of a basic life skills that people kind of have that knowledge. And I think it's a bit of a miss that
yeah.
I, maybe it is taught. I don't have kids, so maybe there is some version of that that's taught in schools, but I'm not aware of it.
To what it needs to be. It's very
No.
a big, and it's one of the only subjects that all of us have to do
Yeah.
when we leave school. We
Yeah.
all leave school. We have to get a job. We
Yeah.
have to get money, pay rent, pay bills, like do all this stuff.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we all have to do it. No one can't have that job. We can't touch it. We all have to deal with money and stuff like that when we leave
Yeah.
school. Yet it's
Yeah.
not.
And
It's not.
has
It's not taught. Not
No,
taught
and
in the
has
education
such an
system.
impact on your life and the quality of your life, and all the stuff around, particularly aging populations and all of that kind of stuff. Like if you can, as you said, be empowered and have got yourself to a stage where you've got some choices and you're not just kind of reliant on I keep wanting to say pension because that's what it is where
Yeah,
I come from, but welfare or whatever
yeah.
the Australian terminology is. I think to my point there about my sort of love-hate relationship with the word purpose, I think that the reason I say that is that I personally feel that sometimes people define it too narrowly.
Mm.
And actually, so your definition there of actually being able to help people and have an impact, really meaningful impact on their lives, totally agree with. Awesome. I think that's, to me, that's what it should mean. But I do wonder whether, I've had so many conversations with people over the years where as soon as they use the word purpose, it almost defaults to be that they should be in, or that they want to be in the not-for-profit space, or it is
Mm.
about helping people most of the time is kind of the core of it. But then how they see themselves getting there, I think they don't necessarily have a broad enough definition of that. And I think that's what's great in your example, because it's, yes, I want to help people, but you haven't sort of limited down to how you do that.
Yeah, and even the helping has evolved around. It's even not just clients. Like I'm passionate about even helping others in the industry. I like to get brokers
Mm,
that reach out and maybe follow me on Instagram, whatever it is. And yeah, they're starting out and I'm a few years ahead of them and want some advice. I'm like, oh my God, like I love that. I love helping people, giving them advice, giving them some direction. They take it and go and take action. And they've learned from it, but they've won or it worked or whatever. It's like, and they're like so excited. I'm like, yes, I love that. That stuff gets me very excited.
yeah, no, I totally agree with you. It's whilst we're in slightly different spaces, it's the exact same reason that I do what I do.
Yeah,
So yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from.
love it.
What what have been some of the challenges about making a transition, a reinvention, a pivot? I hate that word. Can't believe I
Mm.
just used it. Uh, what are some of the things that you perhaps didn't foresee that were challenges, or vice versa? Like, how is it now you've done it, kind of looking back on it?
Yeah, look, a few things. I mean, if I talk about running my own business, and then I'll chat
Mm.
about broking specifically. I mean, the running your own business thing. I mean, that is bloody hard. Like, when you start your own business, it's amazing people I hear, they're like, I want to start my own business so I can have freedom of lifestyle and flexibility. I'm like, no, 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 no. If you want freedom, flexibility and lifestyle, go and freaking work for someone because you can have
Yeah.
nine to five. you pay the same every week. That is freedom and flexibility. Like when you run your own business, I don't think I realised. You, I had to learn this very quickly. The whole like you've got to work on all aspects of your business every week.
Mm.
You know, you need to be marketing, you need to be doing accounting, you need to be the cleaner, you're the coffee person, you're the CEO,
Yep.
you like, and that is hard to stay disciplined with when you're on your own. I'm sitting in the spare room at home, seeing a couple of boxes. I've turned out wardrobe cupboards into whiteboards and put whiteboard panels on there so I can draw where my deals are at. And it's bloody hard. When you're on your own, you gotta get up and do it. And
Mm.
that was very, very hard. I leaned on some experience from my retail days and leading teams to help me in that was around kind of structuring my week.
Yeah.
And I would set calendar invites with myself for meetings for
Mm.
certain things. And it might be right, Monday at 10 a.m. we're doing pipeline review. Tuesday we're reviewing marketing. Thursday we're doing this. So I could visually see my calendar, all these activities, and it's just a meeting with myself. But I
Yeah.
just take any headspace and going, right, okay, now it's Friday, it's marketing day. Cool. I'm not thinking about deals. Now, what am I doing for marketing? Am I writing some social media posts? Am I doing this? Am I doing that? That was a powerful tool to help, with discipline early on when, you can be all over the place when you're on your own. And from the broking side of things, there's so many intricacies in lending and how deals get put together and dealing with lenders and how assess deals. And it was very hard. I was probably took a good 9 to 12 months of a lot of pain making mistakes, but something I learned early on, and my mentor at the time, he described me like a 4-year-old. And he's like, you're like a 4-year-old, like you just ask why to everything. And I'm like, that was important to me. I'm like, okay, this is how it works. Yeah, but why? Yeah, but why? But why? So I tell people now, like, who are learning in the industry, like, be a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
Be curious and don't take no for an answer. And ask why something happened, but why not? Like, that is the best way to learn. Don't just take things on face value because, yes, you'll make mistakes, but I think you can, minimize the amount of mistakes you make by being so curious and leaning on people around you. I think in any industry, like lean on whether we support people like people in the industry, people and ask the curious 4-year-old questions. Like that stuff that I guess really helped me accelerate the learning early on and try and, I guess, find mistakes before they happened and minimize
Mm.
surprises. I'm someone, I don't like surprises. Like, I don't even like good surprises. It's just what things that happen, how we planned, how we thought. So it can also help remove, surprises, good or bad.
Yeah, I love the 4-year-old analogy because it is like any new thing. It's you don't know what you don't know, so you've got to uncover everything and
Yes,
just that. Yeah, why this? Why that? Why are we doing this? Why are we not doing that? Is how else do you learn? You've got
totally.
to you've got to ask the questions.
That's it. My mentor, he said to me, he was like, I think for probably 9 months, I was very high maintenance. I would call him. I'd have like an hour call with him trying to explain to me how trust structures work. And then I'd call him an hour and I'm like, so, can you just explain it again? But I got there eventually. I persisted out, but I did get there eventually.
I mean, it's kind of hardcore, isn't it? Because you're learning two things at the same time. You're learning being a broker and the I guess the more technical aspects of that, but you're also learning to be your own boss and build your own business at the same time. So
Mm,
you've set yourself or had set yourself two fairly difficult challenges in unison there.
absolutely. My first client was my sister-in-law. So I was like, cool. She was like, cool, I'll give you a round. I'm like, amazing. And, I had a chance to practice and probably fumbled my way through all the client meetings with her. It was okay. It's my sister-in-law. And then she put me under someone at her work. And then it was like a friend let me do their loans. And that all worked. And then they put me under some, then you get these little
Yeah.
micro, moments of momentum. And it just it keeps you going. You're like, cool, I think I'm getting it. Like, and the power of momentum. This incredible. It really helped me get traction and keep things moving.
Yeah, I think people really actually underestimate the importance of momentum in kind of all aspects, but I think certainly absolutely 100% in terms of your own business, but also from a career perspective, I think momentum can be really important, certainly for people that are looking to shift or change careers or
Mm,
find a new job. Like momentum is such a part of that. I previously spent whatever it was 13 odd years in recruitment, and we would talk
mm,
about momentum all the time, of just like momentum of the job search or momentum in the process. And I would imagine it's not dissimilar with the actual loans process, that you've got to keep that momentum moving forward. It's that kind of time kills all deals thing that is a kind of a
yeah.
truism in recruitment, or
Oh,
at least it was. But
yeah, no, totally. Yeah, couldn't agree. I was even in my retail days, just thinking back, like as I was going through, Cotton On was a big company, but I would go and have like coffees with different people across the business and like learn about their departments. Like my last 2 years before I went into broking, I headed up e-commerce and digital marketing for the brand, and to get to that was my first step of getting a bit more out of my comfort zone. And, I was from stores, and then to go into digital, I knew nothing about. They just needed a leader to lead the team and get things going. But to do that, like I went and met with other people in digital marketing and e-com from across the group. And I had coffees with them. Like, okay, so what do you do? Like, how does it work? What's your career story? Like, I'm always big on like, what's your journey? Cool, you're in head of e-com now. How'd you get here? What were you doing before? How'd you start? Da, 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 da. I just hear the story from 5 different people. You get a little bit of gold from each person, and this helps you, I guess, in clarity or confidence. Go, yeah, no, 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 this jump is right for me. I've done some research, done some homework. I'm feeling good about it. Let's go.
absolutely. It's an awesome piece of advice, actually, and something that I think is actually quite underutilized, is particularly in larger businesses, those types of conversations, and also leads quite nicely onto the next thing that I wanted to ask you about, which is personal brand. But in the sense of someone working in a larger company, actually those conversations go directly to personal brand, because it's visibility, it's putting yourself out there, it's having conversations, it's being able to talk about what you're delivering in your current role, whilst also, finding out about what's happening in other parts of the business. So I think a really, really underutilized tactic, perhaps sounds a little bit clinical, but that's actually what I think it is.
Yeah, because you never know what your future holds. I could have
You
met with these
don't.
5 people and I've connected with them. They're like, oh, he's a great guy. Like, he had a great chat. Who knows, in X months or years later, an opportunity comes up and where our
Yeah,
paths cross, and they're like, I've applied for a job. And they're like, actually, I've met Scott. He was this and he was great. And blah,
yeah,
blah, blah, blah. Like, you've got to put yourself out there. And it can be as simple as just, copying someone
yeah,
and like getting
yeah.
to know them, build your network of human beings on earth. And you just never know when things pop up and they're like, oh, well, actually, I do know him. Like, yeah, I think he's cool. Like, he's worth an interview. Mm.
So true. It's one of the mistakes that I see people make, again, as part of sort of a job search or broader, that I think they're too literal with how they see networking. Well, I don't think this person can get me a job, so what's the point? But exactly as you said, you never know.
You never know.
You
And
don't know
this
now.
absolutely. And the strategy is like, don't go in with intention
No.
around like being salesy or like, oh, what am I going to get from this?
Yeah.
And my early broking days, like I met with so many business owners and people in the community here, and they were kind of waiting for the sales pitch, but I didn't do anything. I'm like, I just
Yeah.
want to meet new people and get to know people. Like, I just sell my business. Oh, you run the local, bathware shop. Tell me about your business. How long have you had it? Like,
Yeah.
and oh, how did you start your business? How much stuff you got? And that was it. We exchanged details and off we go. And
Yeah.
the amount of like deals I've got in over the 5 years from just those initial, just having a chat, and it's another human I know and knows me in the area. Yeah, just go in with an authentic from an authentic place, just to get to know your people. And I
Yeah.
think that's the stuff that really connects.
Yeah, definitely. And to your earlier point about curiosity and just finding out about people and asking questions and being
Totally.
interested, you know?
Yeah.
And also I agree of not, not jumping to the sales pitch and not even going into the conversation with that intention of just here's another person, let me find out about them, who knows where that might lead, and just having a open mind as to what
Yeah.
might come of that.
Mm.
I mentioned personal brand before, and I keep harping on about terminology today because I said it about purpose before as well. But I also think that personal branding, ironically, has a bit of a branding problem. I think people sort of instinctively don't love the idea of it, or what they sort of think that it's about. Whereas I think the actual activity, and as I said before, being more visible and communicating with a broader group of people, I think people understand the value of that activity. They sometimes just don't like the sort of the terminology that goes along with it. But how do you see it, and how has it been useful in your transition and into building your business now?
Yeah, I think with personal branding, I think a lot of people can feel overwhelmed, like, oh my God, like, what is this thing? Do I need to like create a brand? Or like, no, 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 no. Like, it's like the only thing that each of us have that no one else has is ourselves.
Yeah.
No one else on this planet can be better at being me than me. And same with you, Emma. No one can be better in the world at being you. And it's about people leveraging and amplifying what they are about and what's unique to them. It's not about being different. It's about, being having the confidence to just be yourself. And personal branding is a saying around but your personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room.
Hmm.
So it's like what's okay, like everything about how you show up, how you dress, how you look, your body language, how you communicate to people, the questions you ask, or how you respond in email, like every touch point of you is what your personal brand is about. And you need to think about this depending on what industry you're in. I mean, as an example, if you're someone who maybe looks a bit doesn't take care of yourself, you look a bit sloppy and let's say you're a mortgage broker and you don't take care of your appearance and how you show up and you're not very interested in people, you could be the best mortgage broker on the planet, but people are going to look and go, well,
Yep.
you look a bit sloppy, you sound a bit sloppy. That's probably what you're like as a broker. This is just, we're humans. This is just
Yeah.
how we perceive it. Perception is reality. So I found it's, getting really clear on, what do I want to kind of present to the world as me and how do I do it and feel comfortable about it? And it's taken time. Like I've used Instagram as the main platform to, build my personal brand, and that's kind of how my business was built on
Hmm.
that. But it takes time and practice, and you've just got to be consistently doing it. I mean, if you scroll to the bottom of my feed, there's some really weird and awkward videos there of me trying to do a video. So it's like we all
Yeah,
started.
I
We all
hear
start.
you. I
Yeah,
have those. I have those same ones at the bottom of my feed.
totally. I tell people, go to the bottom of my feed. Like, oh, I don't like get in front of the camera. I'm like, go to the bottom of my feed and look what I was doing 4 or 5 years ago. Like it was weird and awkward, and yeah, probably fumbled some words. But we think with like, especially using social media to help build your own personal brand, is that when people are watching your content, it really no one actually cares. Some people are like, oh, I spent hours like trying to get a video perfect or whatever. I'm like,
Yeah.
no one cares. Like it's they're seeing you on their feed and going, oh, no, 3 seconds, scroll.
Yeah.
Mm. I mean, I might do a video for a minute. My average watch time might be 15 seconds or something. So
Yeah.
most people, it's the strategies around just being front of mind, just get Scott, like front of mind, front of mind, front of mind. So, it's very much a quantity over quality strategy on socials, but it's a great way to help people, I guess, practice, their personal brand. Or, if you meet with a client, I always tell people about the whole, what's your spiel? You've got to have a story, and you've got to get personal with people. Like where are you from? Where'd you grow up? Do you have any kids, sisters, brothers? What are you into? Do you like cooking? Do you like to play golf? Like this helps good practice for people to build
Yeah.
their own personal brand. Works in the workplace. You don't have to run your own business. You don't have to do social media, like none of that stuff. You could just work for someone as an employee. But like, how are you showing up in the office? Like, how do you present yourself in meetings? Like, what's your tone of voice in emails? What questions are you asking to people in the meeting versus by the water cooler moment? All of this stuff is creating what your personal brand is about. And it is as simple as that. It's not this big, scary thing that
No.
people need to go and create.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I do think that's one of the biggest shifts in the market over the last few years, and I think it's only going to become even more so. That I think it's perhaps more obvious when it's your own business and people are like, oh yeah, I get why you would, you're the face of your business, you're the face of your brand. But I think the biggest thing that's changing is actually people that work in organizations, and certainly larger organizations. That idea of, instead of you going to an opportunity, the opportunities are coming to you. And the only way you can do that is to be more visible and as you said, kind of amplify what you stand for and
Yeah.
what you've achieved, and kind of all of that kind of stuff. And I think it's a real kind of mental shift in terms of how people sort of think about, I guess, their careers more broadly, but specifically their careers in terms of working for an organization. And particularly in my world, I work with marketers, and obviously, they spend all of their time marketing the business that they work for, but you need to spend a little bit of your time essentially marketing yourself, and working on that kind of visibility and brand at the same time as well. How did you find it in the very beginning when you were kind of first putting yourself out there? You mentioned some of those original videos that perhaps aren't your best work, because as I said, I've got those too.
Yeah.
But what's that kind of voice in your head saying when you're doing those first few videos?
I, I just never gave up. Like I just stuck at it. I just had to go. And yeah, I was the one spending probably 2 hours on a video that was, and it took me 20 takes and all these types of things. It was uncomfortable,
Mm.
and I didn't really like it at the time. And I probably would have rather go back to my desk and just kept busy working. But I guess it was important to me to know that I need to work on all aspects of my business every week. I need to do deals. I need to market. I need to look after new clients. And the social media piece is marketing, and I had
Mm.
to. It was a great way to help get myself out there a bit more, and use a platform as a tool to engage new clients, but also existing clients, keep them sticky. I would
Yeah.
tell them that we still do today. If you don't follow us on Insta, go and follow the page. Keeps them close, ongoing. But it's one of
Mm.
these things like just start and just do
Yeah.
it and put it out there. And what I tell people is like, no one cares. Like, seriously, no one cares.
Mm.
It's all in your head. Like, film a freaking video, film 10 videos, post them all, like, post one a day, one a week, whatever it is.
Yeah.
As soon as you can realize in your head that no one actually cares, only you care. It's
Yeah.
like, okay,
Yeah.
cool, this is good. I wanted to get a message out about interest rates have gone down this month. Do a 20-second video, post the thing, get on with your day. Um,
Yeah.
and I know that's hard, but the sooner you can be realize that no one actually cares, start to get going and practice. And I've tried lots of things, different things,
Hmm.
and yeah, you just eventually you do start to get a bit more of a groove.
Yeah, it's so true. And it is just that I think it's easy for people to kind of build up that fear in their heads of, oh, I'm going to post something, and like all the internet trolls are going to come for me, and, all the people I used to work with, and it's going to be horrendous. And as you said, no one cares.
No,
Like, they're
people
not
are
they're
people
not
are too
sitting there
busy
waiting.
worrying about what's in their own head. They
Exactly.
care about what you're doing. So,
Yeah.
yes.
And it is such simple advice, but it is so true of, just post it, just do it. You'll figure it out. The first one probably won't be that good. The second, third, fourth, fifth one probably won't be that good. But at some point, you're going to figure it out, and you're going to hit the groove, and just keep
Totally.
learning from there.
Yeah.
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 Um, final question, Scott. It's
Hmm.
always the final question here on the pod, and that is, what do you know now that you wish you knew then?
Look, probably took me 12 months to figure it out. Probably just the power of leaning on people, like leaning on people you know in the whether it's in your industry, in your workplace, whatever it is, and having some vulnerability to go, hey, I need help, or how do you do this, or I'm doing this, or what are your thoughts? Like, I think a lot of people can be too proud and go, I don't ask for
Mm,
help, no, I'll figure it out. But like, no, like asking for help is a strength. And I think the sooner you can be vulnerable and go, hey, this is my first time doing this. How would you do it? This is what I'm thinking. I'd love your thoughts. It is a very powerful tool, being like asking others for help and being vulnerable. I think that's understanding now the power of that and how that can help
yeah,
you not just learn whatever you're doing, but build a relationship as well.
yeah.
Yeah, very powerful.
Totally agree. And I think the other thing that's interesting about that is that most people want to help. They're more than happy to help. They will go out of their way to help you. They just don't magically know that you might need help. And
Absolutely. It's like
yeah,
if you ask someone for help, like we are humans, we want to help people. You go,
yeah,
hey, I need help. I've never done this
absolutely.
before. But oh, cool, like, cool. How can I help you? No one's gonna be like, no. Like, sorry. Our natural instinct as humans
Yeah.
is to go, oh, cool. Like, yeah, how can I help? Mm.
100%, 100%. Scott, thank you. That was awesome. So interesting, and yeah, I just love what you've done, and really inspirational to kind of make such a change. And it is something that is very topical. I think certainly off the kind of the back of COVID, we saw a lot of people wanting to go in very different directions, but I'm just having more and more of these types of conversations where people want to make change, and often quite big change, and just not knowing how to do it. So thank you so much for sharing your experience and talking through how you did it. It's awesome.
Pleasure, Emma. Thanks very much for having me.